go. Here we go. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 4, 3, 2, 1. Hello, everyone. I'm your host, the Dr. Bob Lee, and you're watching Open. It's that live interactive program that brings the Bronx and New York City straight to your TV set. You can stay connected to us through social media at BronxNet TV. Now, leading things off, our first guest is the co-pastor of Bethesda Baptist Church, and he's here to speak about his work as a writer and how he's going to be inspiring others to do the same. So please welcome to the show, Reverend Alan Paul Weaver III. Welcome, welcome, welcome.
Oh, why, thank you. It's great to be here. Thank you for having me.
And tell Phyllis I said hello.
Yes, I would definitely do that.
All right. So tell us a little bit about you. I mean, I believe I met you from time to time. Are you in Mount Vernon?
No, I'm in Larchmont. I was in the Bronx.
Oh, right up. Okay, yeah.
You know, I used to live in the Bronx, moved to Larchmont. And so I've been a number of years back. I was on your show. It was a little while ago. So it's been a while. So.
Now, you've been through some things because you weren't going to be with us at a time. It wasn't until your early 20s before you were able to truly begin loving yourself. Can you explain that?
Yeah, growing up, I dealt with a lot of self-esteem issues, low self-esteem issues. I didn't like who I was as a person, you know, as a young man, as a young Black man. Even I had a long laundry list of things that I didn't like about myself. Right, I was too thin, wore glasses, didn't like the way my voice sounded, and every time.
Can you back up and say that again? In your early 20s, before you were able to begin truly to love yourself, you were going through some things. Can you explain that?
Sure. Before college, I was in high school and I was wrestling with a lot of low self-esteem issues. I didn't like who I was when I looked in the mirror. I had a long laundry list of things that I didn't like about myself. You know, I wore glasses. I was tall and skinny, lanky. I didn't like the way my voice sounded. And so every time I looked in the mirror, I was upset with God because I felt like he made a mistake in making me. And on the outside, I'd smile. I had friends, had a good life, but my internal struggle made it that I couldn't see all of the love and support that was around me. So about a month after graduating from high school, I attempted suicide. So that's back in 1992. And, you know, I had, you know, growing up, there were a lot of people in the church. My dad's a pastor. A lot of people who said, you know, Alan, when you grow up, you're going to be somebody. You know, you're going to do something great. You're going to do something significant. And I couldn't see past, you know, 18, past 21. I didn't think that I'd make it. And so, you know, a month after high school, I attempted suicide. But, you know, God intervened.
But God,
you know, the only way.
And there are a lot of people that probably feel the same way. You know, I mean, when I was growing up, I didn't like myself too much either, you know, as a matter of fact. And that's a dangerous position to be in, because if I didn't like myself, I didn't like you. And then things can get kind of complicated. So what do you tell others who may be feeling the same way? Because now you can tell more or less who these people are when they come to your church.
Right. So whether it's at my church, whether it's in the community, I've had the times that I've shared my testimony about how I was and how God brought me through that. And, you know, the day after I attempted suicide, I went to the very spot where I was like cursing God, you know, in my mind, like, God, why did you make me? Like, you did a terrible job. I hate my life. And I went to that very spot and I said, God, you did not allow me to die last night. So you must have a plan for me. And I said, whatever, I don't know what the plan is, but whatever it is, you know, I want it. And I was already accepted to college, but I was ready to throw all of that away.
Yeah.
But then, you know, so I ended up going to college, and it was in college that God was working on me, and I began to discover gifts and talents in communications that I didn't even know that I had, and you know, God called me into the ministry, and to preach. And
Yeah.
then in 1995, God was like, I want you to write a book. And I said, I don't know the first thing about writing a book, and all of those things. So over the years, when I've told my testimony and shared my story, I mean, I've had grown men come to me and say thank you, like I was going through, I was thinking about taking my life, all of those types of things. So I've had men and women, boys and girls, be able to share their own experience.
Yeah, see, it's in God's timing, and if we
Right.
just waited a little more time, it's in God's timing and not our timing.
Right.
So yeah, and so when did you find out that you wanted to become a pastor or a reverend?
It was in 1994. I was running, and I remember growing up as a teenager. I'd see my dad in the pulpit, and he'd be preaching and teaching and praying and all those things. And in the middle, of service, I'd be praying, and I'm like, Lord, I will do whatever you want me to do, but do not make me a preacher. Like,
yes,
anything else, but don't make me a preacher. God has a sense of humor, because that's exactly what I am.
He said, okay, we'll see what we can do.
and I'm at the same church where I said, Lord, don't make me a preacher.
God's funny.
So God has a sense of humor. So
yes, he does.
in 94, I was running from it in college, and I was just like, I could feel God saying, I want you to preach. And I was just like, no, I don't want to do that. And I was at a service, and I went to school at Bethune-Cookman University down in Daytona Beach, Florida, historically Black college. And I was at a service at a church, and there was a guest speaker. He was a white man, never seen him before in my life. He preached well. I couldn't tell you what the message is now, I don't remember, but I remember going up to him afterwards and saying, I really appreciated your message. And he shook my hand, and he held my hand. He would not let my hand go. And he looked me like dead in my eyes. And he said, thank you, but when are you going to preach?
Whoa, there you go.
My hand go, and he said, have a nice day. And so at that point, I had been running for a couple of years, and I was just like, okay, God, if you want me to preach, I'll do it.
So God said, sit down. Here we go. Let me talk to you.
Let pull you by the ear, like, here, come over here. Let me have a conversation with you.
yeah. So 8 books later.
8 books later, I never thought that I would be an author. Never had a desire as a teenager to be an author. And in 1995, I was a communications major at Cookman, and we went for a communications one-day seminar. And there were 4 people on the panel, and it was like somebody from TV, somebody from radio, somebody from magazines. And then there was this unknown young Black man who was a first-time self-published author. And it was something about his presentation that, like, this fire lit in me. And every time, they opened up the floor for questions, in a whole room full of people, I'm asking all of my questions to him, to the point where everybody, all my friends are like, Alan, shut up. Like, give people a chance, And I just couldn't explain it. All of a sudden I had this desire. And a couple of weeks later after that, I really felt
putting the pen to the paper.
Yeah. And the Lord was like, I want you to write a book. And I was like, I have no idea how to write a book. Like, you've got to help me. And
you were raising your hand, but that also was, you were reaching for God too at the same time. Oh, okay, I got you. Yeah. So, but what was the first book?
My first book is called Transition: Breaking Through the Barriers. It's an anthology, a collection of poetry, short story, and short essay, which chronicles 10 years of my life, starting with my suicide attempt after high school. And it took me 10 years to write. And I didn't know it was going to take that long, but I had to go through 10 years of experience to be able to write about it. So that was my first book, which was released in 2006. And I thought I was done. Like, okay, it's just one book. Had no idea that there were others. And a couple of years later, the inspiration came to write my.
You caught the bug. You got the book bug.
Right. And then I'm 8 books in now.
Well, and we got to read. We got to teach our congregation and our people in our community, for community building and everything, that reading is so important. My father always read. Hal Jackson always came in. These disc jockeys always came in with the arms filled with newspapers. You got to read to be able to lead.
Right.
if you can't read, you cannot lead. I heard Pastor T.D. Jakes say that.
Wow.
But
That's
but
good.
then, what's your current book? Your latest book?
My latest book is called The Resurrection Life, and just came out last year, self-published last year, and it is a 40-day devotional journey looking at the teachings of Jesus.
Oh, wow.
And, the interesting thing about that is in 2019, I came out with a book called Resurrection, the Big Picture of God's Purpose and Your Destiny. And it basically gives you the grand narrative of the Bible and helps you to understand, what the Bible is all about. And then from that, I was like, okay, the follow-up would be this 40-day devotional. And so I started writing it in 2019. And somewhere about November of 2019, the desire to write it just completely stopped.
Mm-hmm.
And I couldn't explain it. And then, of course, 2020 hits, and we're in the midst of a pandemic. And I was looking to do that book for Easter, for Resurrection Day 2020. But of course, God had other plans. And about a week before Easter, suddenly I had the desire to write again, to finish it. And then my father called me, and he was like, "Hey, I want to do a 50-day devotional from Easter to Pentecost, to the day of Pentecost.
Wow.
Can you write, an email devotional that would go out every day for 50 days?" And I said, "Well, I can do 40 because I'm already working on 40. Do the other 10." And he was like, "Okay." So I took what I had already written, which was about 50 to 60% done,
and found a place for it.
And then the Lord gave the other 50. And by the end of the 40 days, a number of people were like, "Wow, you should publish this, as a book." And I was just like, "Okay, all right." God likes the scenic route. We want to go from A to Z. And God's like, "Well, the A to Z, you got to go through B, C, D, E, And so it didn't happen how I planned for it to happen, but it happened.
Yeah. And what's the significance of the number 40?
Right. So, 40 days in the wilderness with Jesus before his ministry, Moses being up on the mountain for 40 days. Like 40 days is a significant amount of time in the Bible in a number of various scenarios.
Yeah. Well, we could preach a whole sermon here, and we're going to have you come back again because,
Sure.
They only give us segments on this. But now you're teaching, and is it up on the website where we can go and find out about all the books that you've written and your teachings and everything? Because people can reach out to you to learn more about how to put the pen to the paper. Is that so?
Right. So my website is Alan. It's my name, Alan Paul Weaver 3, the number 3. So AlanPaulWeaver3.com. And then I just recently started a YouTube channel called DTC Writer Studio. It's specifically to help people who know that they've got a book in them, but they don't know how to bring it out. That I will share my journey and the nuts and bolts of my journey, the obstacles, the successes, the failures, steps that you need to do in order to go from a book idea to a final finish, product of having the book published in your hands.
Reverend Alan Paul Weaver, thank you so much. We appreciate you. All
pleasure.
right. Fellas, hey, waving a hand. God bless you.
God bless you.
All right, stay safe. We're going to take a break right here. I've got more open coming your way next.